Another episode of Write Once, Read Many. And I'm hoping it's sending stuff. It says no data. Hey Greg, if you can hear me, yeah, nice, video and audio. Okay, awesome. I've been having some computer troubles this morning. Hey Vic. Cool. Well, let's see here. Okay, so yeah, we're doing, 29.6 from Venom, and we've got this picture of the 4 Vegas capes. It's Satyr, Floret, Leonid, and Blowout. And just give them a second to form. Ooh. And as a reminder, the audience participation question was, who is the least trustworthy character in Worm? Total opinion question, but, you know, we'll see what people think. As for themes, Taylor's kind of been talking about people having secret hidden powers since Arc 1. Including Lung being basically the first example of that happening. So, you know, interesting that he would be here at this scene with, like, the height of secondary and subtle and secret powers all sort of coalescing onto one team. Let's see here. So yeah, secret powers, characters not being straightforward about their ulterior motives, what else? Taylor's constant desperation, that's gotta be a theme. I like later on when she describes that they don't have any way to escape, and they're hoping to find a chance within a chance within a chance, or whatever she says. Great stuff. It's very Taylor. Yeah, and then, you know, I think kind of done with the themes section. I think I'm going to get into the main chapter. So it starts off with Cuff questioning what's going on between Weaver and Satyr, because she can tell that something was said and something was left unsaid, and then they reveal to the group that Scion is coming. And we learn a piece of information that Leonid has a power where he can hear all sound within a certain distance, regardless of, you know, all the reasons in real life why you couldn't, like intervening stuff or counter noises, stuff like that. And then let's see here. So you know, they start talking with the knowledge that they can't really hide information from the Vegas capes, but vice versa is not true. Leonid tries to sort of flirt with Imp again, and then they're like, it's not gonna work. Satyr already tried that. And he's like, oh, I do it for the love of the game, dog. I'm just here to flirt with ladies. That's my job. And I love my job. So yeah, then there's this metaphor where they have one hand that distracts while the other makes the move. And even though they say like one cape is the hand that distracts and one cape is the hand that makes the move, it's very much like any of them can slot into any of those roles because of who they are. And then there's some quipping back and forth, and then they sort of start talking about how there's a problem with Scion being here because all of Cauldron's backup plans were basically haven't been deployed yet, and they're all here, so he could run through all of them at the same time, which is both good and bad, I guess. Like, each individual cape, how likely are they to be able to, like, do stuff versus, like, if he's fighting them all at once. Although I do think that the whole idea that they use the Case 53s to cover up their activities and have Scion not be able to see past it, that's the main plan that I think suffers from Scion showing up here. All the others, like, oh, we have some extreme deviants who might be able to fight him. Like, the fact that he's going around and fighting all of them here is almost convenient, but it's not convenient for our heroes who are having to run away from him. And then, let's see here. And we already knew this, but it's said outright that the masses of people in the prison cells upstairs were one of the plans, and the extreme deviant cases were another. In this layered cauldron cake. And then, let's see here. It is funny that Florette assumes that it was the custodian who had used the knife, and then Taylor's like, nah, dog, I'm the floating death knife. Not you. Not custodian. May. And, they are moving toward where they're moving toward where the Case 53s who were trying to dig into the lower levels to get to the doctor are, and they're moving at a specific speed so that they'll get there when they are just finishing digging through, because the Vegas Capes don't have any way to actually do that on their own. So they're relying on the labor of these hardworking Case 53s. And then they all agree as the two groups of Taylor's crew and Sater's crew to keep moving while they're there. They're monitoring how far they are through the door with Sater clones that have infiltrated the Case 53 group. We get backgrounds on each cape as we're going. First, they tell us Leonid's power package, and it's all in Taylor's head, so she's saying some of the things to other people, but most of it's just in her, own background. We learn about Florette and how she can deal with, fine details and has some sort of, blooming crystal power and a thinker power where she sees all fine details, and the crystals she makes can interact with various aspects. It honestly seems like Florette's crystals are the closest equivalent I can come up with is Citrine's power, whereas Citrine actively does it. Florette creates and sets up this crystal that'll do whatever a normal Citrine ability would do. Always on really fine scale, though. And she's one of those former villain cape type of people. She used to do scams using her power, but then she joined the Vegas Capes. And then, yeah, Scion is sort of slowly making his way into the facility, according to what Sator's saying. And we could assume, we could, like, be like, oh, maybe he's lying, but we pretty much know Scion's there, especially if we've read through this chapter. Wenlong is like, nah, he's right behind us, dog. Scion's right there. And Taylor doesn't get the feeling he's lying. Revel, Exalt, and Vantage were actually secretly left behind in that cave where Nyx was and had been knocked out by Blowout's power. And then this is when we get a background on Blowout, how he, like, uses the momentary awe of others seeing him do crazy stuff to alternately, like, kind of mind blast people and also gain a telekinetic super strength that's probably akin to, like, the way that the Glory Girl force field is. Like, it's not a force field, but I guess it's like somewhere between Glory Girl and Browbeat. But it's like a point blank telekinesis that looks like super strength from the outside. Anyway, not to get too deep into their powers, but so there, Taylor's thinking about all sorts of powers combos like she always is. It doesn't come up, but she's like, could he have used Satyr duplicates to manufacture getting the power of a crowd watching him, so that, like, Blowout would be powerful enough to do his thing without as many people around? And I think that's a neat idea. Not that we know, it's just sort of speculation from her. And then so Taylor's trying to, like, get information about Satyr. She opens up talking about Spur and Nyx. Um, uh, he's basically like, I'm not worried. If you attack them or whatever, I'll just get revenge later. But right now, that won't affect how I'm operating. So she's like, damn, I didn't get to his ass by, sort of implied past tense threats against his friends. Which makes sense. Satyr's like a operator, But yeah. So the whole like time the Vegas Capes are, like, communicating to each other with weird sign language and stuff and trying to be low key about it. But Taylor's like, I know that they know that I know they're doing it. Lots of typical Taylor mind games, but with actual people who are, like, not really outdoing her. They're not, like, outsmarting her. They just are at her level, kind of. Um. So, and there's this funny moment where Rachel just openly says that she doesn't like Satyr, and then when Imp says that Leonid can hear her, she says it at full volume, and then calls out how he's like Tattletale in her worst moments, essentially. And then Satyr's just stunned by this, and by the fact that he has none of his intended effect on Rachel and can't manipulate her. And then for a second, he tries to be like, but Weaver's manipulating you. And then Rachel's just like, well, I'm just going to attack you with my dogs if you keep implying that Weaver's manipulating me. And then it's funny because Lung also is unaffected by this and basically thinks of Satyr as like a shittier version of Marquis. Um, uh, Vic says they're so sus. Yeah, yeah. Like the Vegas Capes are like, even if their goals are literally your exact goals, you still shouldn't trust them. And then, Taylor says how, they have to go along with Satyr for now, and they're just going to keep moving along and expect to get betrayed, and that they're probably trying something. Um, but it is funny how Satyr's also like, I can't believe none of these people are letting me manipulate them. Um, Taylor's just sort of gauging the situation and stuff. She's like, um, worried about the fact that Canary is already not keeping it together and they haven't even started fighting. Um, it is funny because Golem's not taking part in this conversation that much. He just goes, "You know what you're doing," and then Taylor tells him to watch his back, and that she knows that they can hear everything she's saying, etc., but she just doesn't care. Um, and it's funny because like Taylor's group is right in the end, but they're just so assured in their overwhelming force of powers that that they go along with Satyr even knowing he's going to betray them any minute. Um, it's like a weird chapter to describe without like reading all the bits because everything's constantly like ping-ponging back and forth, but I do feel like that's a common Wildbow thing, that like summarizing the conversations can be hard because they're really like it's a real dialogues and stuff where each little back and forth kind of matters. Still, I've been doing my best to learn to summarize these and not just say everything. So they talk about how Scion's probably here because they have so many Case 53s, and he's probably come here to investigate why. At first, Golem just says there's lots of capes here, but then they're like, there's lots of capes in a lot of places. But I would argue to Satyr that, trapping several thousand parahumans in one place is probably a higher concentration than anywhere else on any Earth, so I don't know. And then Satyr starts bad mouthing Case 53s, these distorted spawn, as Cuff goes along with the thing and says, and then ShadowStalker says, something foul, broken, wrong, loathsome, damaged. And then it's very sad. Imp is carrying Sveta in a ball, in like a little hamster ball that holds her in, and Sveta's bumping around in there, getting agitated by ShadowStalker's shitty attitude. And then Cuff is like, whoa, you're kind of taking it pretty far there, ShadowStalker. And then she's like, no, it's all true. This was psychological warfare. And then it's like, she's talking to Satyr more directly now. And then Taylor's like, damn it. He's getting to ShadowStalker. He didn't even seem to directly talk to her, and he's still getting her. And then so he's explaining more about the idea that the Case 53s sort of cover up other powers' activity with their sort of very presence in an area which is a useful tool against Scion. And then she's, you know, Taylor's trying to monitor Shadowstalker to make sure she's not getting too like brought into Sator's rhythm or whatever. But you know, she's still trying to walk this fine line where even though, you know, everything's going on, she wants to have information on like the Case 53's progress through the door, etc., etc. She doesn't actually want to fight Sator's group. I think the best thing for her would be if they get to the door they're trying to dig through, and they go through and don't have to fight Sator's group. But of course, she could not be so lucky. So then Golem is talking about how if Scion wanted to, he could just wipe out this whole facility and just kind of blast them. But as we've seen many times, Scion is not really content with quickly getting things over with all at once. He's sort of experimenting through different emotions. We've seen him try all sorts of weird ways to mess with people, and even though he could just destroy the planet. The dog has entered, and I need to help her achieve her goal of getting up on the bed. Come on, do it. Oh, there you go. Sorry for that interruption, but you always got to help the dogs out. So, let's see here. Yes. Sator is not only tracking the Case 53s, but also seems to have other versions of himself higher up in the facility that are tracking where Scion is. Wow, the dog is really making a little racket behind me. I don't think it's necessarily on the microphone, but it is very distracting. And so yeah, Scion is on the level where where there are individual like named capes that have interesting enough powers to be researched individually. And then you know, obviously far below them is the Doctor, and they open up the Sveta holding ball to have Sveta be able to talk out of it. And she starts talking to them. She knows Taylor to a certain degree. Taylor's like, we met on the oil rig. But great memory, the oil rig. Then Sator is like a D-bag, and he's all like, she's also Garrot. She killed all these people. She's the worst. It's weird because Sator and Tattletale basically have the same shit to say on Sveta, which is a point against Tattletale. She's always so mean to Sveta. But anyway. Then Sator talks about how Sveta was with Weld's group, and then she sort of gives them the update on the fact that the Doctor and a bunch of clones of the Numberman and the Numberman all ran away. But I think they also have the knocked out Doormaker and Yeah, and the clairvoyant. Let's see here. Apparently Brickhouse, Magnat, and Munstro were all capes who joined Weld's side against the other Case 53s, and she says they made it inside, but I don't think we see them again, so they probably got killed off screen, if we're being honest. And then the Pretender was there as Alexandria. And then when the lights flicker off temporarily, this time the emergency lights don't come on. And so Taylor's team all like huddles together in a defensive formation. Sator starts forming like a duplicate, and it's a duplicate with his own costume and stuff. And then even though it's in the darkness, obviously Taylor senses this, and then she's like, I'm going to attack you if you keep splitting. And Florette starts like trying to lie and being like, he can't stop splitting once he starts. And then Taylor's like, okay, well, if that's true, I'm gonna attack you guys. So and then he reverts into one satyr. And then when Satyr says, we need to talk, Weaver, Imp gets one of her best quips in the whole section, where she goes, why is it always Weaver you need to talk to? Never, we need to talk, Rachel. Satyr gets all pissed, but I do love that moment. And the fact that she got under his skin is pretty good too. Then Taylor tells Satyr's saying that he has to ask about their goals, and because he wants I don't know what answer he was looking for from Taylor, but she says that they're trying to save the Doctor and get answers and stop Scion. And then he says that that he can't trust them because they don't have ulterior motives, and like I am still like, I'm with Taylor. Like, his motivation is very bizarre to me. I think Satyr. Yeah, Satyr's a guy that I don't have my head fully wrapped around, but I do think he's a douche, regardless of his motivations. So, yeah, he doesn't want to let them go onward. It is funny because Taylor says, sorry, if you haven't noticed, a lot of us are pretty blunt here, straightforward. Our goals are what they appear to be. I really wish you could trust us. And then, you know, Satyr's like, and I wish I couldn't. Funny how that works. Everybody's sort of getting into position in the darkness. Taylor can still sense everything with the swarm, but then realizes that there's like stuff going wrong with the sound, probably from Leonid, and then, you know, she knows where the knife is, the floating death knife, but nobody else has sensed it yet, and she's trying to collect it up with her bugs. And then we learn that Leonid has a power where he can like move parts of him based on sound. I'm not 100% sure what's up with that. I think that he can like shout himself into other locations, but we don't really get all the details. And then Taylor tries to ask what Satyr's motives are. He seemingly wants to help the Doctor and kill her. But if he did that, then he'd have to go against Pretender or whatever. I feel like this motivation could have been established a lot better if, like, the time that we saw Satyr and Pretender talking at the end of arc 24, that we had seen either longer or more directly from Satyr's perspective or something to just sort of clarify his character a little more. Vic says, the wiki says he's in love with Pretender. Is this a spoiler? No, I mean, I get that he's in love with Pretender, but, like, I don't really get why he has enough animosity aside, like, against the Doctor, I guess, that he would want to not just try to get down there and save Pretender. Like, his it's the other side of his motivations that I don't really understand. Like he, yeah, I don't know. Like, why does he want to stop Taylor from getting down there if he thinks Taylor's trying to assist the side that Pretender's on? I just don't get it. I'm too much of a fool. And then Taylor accuses these guys of not being able to play anything. Like, I mean, she says, you've all forgotten how to walk a straight line. And then Satyr says, powers from a bottle, they mess with your body, subtle things, but stuff you notice. And then talks about it in a minute about how like, he's basically implying that the cauldron vials don't mess with your mind, they only mess with your body. But I think he's, like, really wrong on that count, because we've seen tons of people where they get, like, they still end up aligning themselves with their power to a certain degree. It's like the reverse of how a power normally is pre-set up to be the person's, like, normal personality. Like, I don't know. They still end up, like, really, I guess not every cape, because there's some people how am I, Sundancer, who never really, like, align with their power, but I don't know, it seems like most of the characters do sort of warp towards them. But yeah, he's wasting time again, and he's kind of, Vic says, I think part of it is just the lifestyle. Yeah, I suppose you might be right. But even so, it's just like the fact that they might not have as big of a conflict drive or whatever by having the powers because they didn't have a natural trigger event. It it doesn't mean their brains are not affected by having the powers. And then he starts, like, accusing all of them of having, like, their minds all twisted by having natural trigger events, and then he's like, Shadow Stalker, come to my side, I could Palpatine this situation. And she's like, are you serious? I'm not gonna join your side? You can't Palpatine me over to the losing side of a fight? And then Taylor's like, you're fucked. If Stalker and I agree on something, you're doomed. And then, yeah, so then, Taylor's still trying to stop the fight from happening. but eventually Lung says, enough of this, and just starts his hands on fire and begins the fight. When he does this, then it lights up the room, but it means that Floret can suddenly see the knife that Taylor's been trying to bring to herself, and it gets encased in crystal, which, great. We don't even get our knife back. Vic says, Lung always has the right priorities. Yeah. I think that Lung is in the right and Taylor's in the wrong, because, like, if they had waited and this fight still broke out, like, 30 seconds later or a minute later, then they wouldn't have been on time to get through the door at the right time and escape Scion. So you know what? Lung's battle instincts, pretty good. And Leonid sort of, like, screws up the sound so none of them can talk to each other. It's a lot like fighting Screamer. And then he can't, like, talk in their voices, though. It's just that he can cancel sound. And then he starts screaming, and it's like a weird, like, super echo thing, and then he, like, fades from one position to another, and he ends up behind the group. And then Canary just doesn't know what to do and just starts, like, singing. But it doesn't work because of Leonid canceling the sound. Then Rachel's trying to get her dog's attention, and it's not working. Leonid's about to sneak up behind Canary and, like, use his super claws to, like, claw her throat out or whatever. And Rachel just, like, bum rushes him. One of the greatest parts about Rachel is that there are so many scenes where she just doesn't use her power. She just fucking beats people up. And, like, I find that really funny. I guess the same could be said for Gru very occasionally early in the book, as he would just, like, beat people up. But Rachel, like, truly, no backup secondary power, just bum rushes again with ultra claws and stuff. You know what? When they described Leonid's costume, I did kind of think of Sigma from the end of Mega Man X2, but, that's only for the gamers out there. And then Shadow Stalker and Lung try and fight Blowout and Floret, but it's like, they have these perfectly choreographed moves, like Blowout steps in front, then he, like, ducks without giving any signal. Floret throws her little crystal constructions. They actually take down Shadow Stalker right away, and then Lung is bound up for a second, and that's long enough for Blowout to run over and, like, hit Lung. And Blowout is using the fact that this is a shocking turn of events to give him extra strength. He's got a great power, by the way. I love it. Super strength, as long as people are like, whoa, that guy's crazy. Whoa, look at him go. This is a part where, honestly, I was reading it over and over again, like, trying to figure out if I had missed a line, but it says, Satyr forced another copy out in record time, as the other charged me. But I could not, for the life of me, like, figure out, because she said the previous copy he was making before, he receded back into himself. And then I don't think that there's ever a point between that point and this part where he forces out a clone. So I'm just going to assume that, like, a small paragraph got accidentally deleted or something on the edit and he didn't catch it, but apparently he forces out another copy. And there's already one charging Taylor. Taylor says, Vic says nasty. Taylor attacks with her bugs and stuff. She's like, oh no, these clones are tough. They're stronger than they look, even if they're based on an already swole badass like myself. Vic says, I don't know why this grossed me out so much. I will say that I am grossed out by Sator's power, mostly because of the fact that whenever he stops focusing on the clones and just sort of lets them go, they don't, like, disappear into smoke or something. They, like, pop like blood bags and then the skin withers and stuff. They are gross as shit. Sator's a total freak. And then, uh, Golem and Cuff sort of step in and they totally beat up the Satyr clones like super easy. They just have no problem with it. Taylor says at one point, I attacked Florette and Leonid and all of the other capes who had exposed skin. And I'm like, does that include any of their group? I'm confused why she would say it that way. Like, does she think... I don't know. I always forget if Cuff has any exposed skin or not, but yeah, just kind of... There are sections of this chapter that I'm a little, like, confused by, to be perfectly honest. And I did read it, like, 3 different times, and then went over these parts that I was confused by several more times to be like, what am I missing here? And I think just a couple things got, like, lost in the shuffle of an edit or something, and Wildbow has never actually made a second pass on the story, which is fine. He's very busy writing other stories. And I rarely do I have this many complaints about any given chapter. Just this one has, like, 3 or 4 spots that are, like, weird. Anyway... So they, now that Golem and Cuff stepped in to like, punch people around, then they have already basically won the fight when Leonid gets sort of it's Canarian power armor standing on one of his hands, and then Rachel Dog sitting on both of his legs. He normal screams, but still uses that scream as a teleport move to get back over to Satyr. And Imp hasn't been acting during this. She hasn't been walking around tasing people or anything. But what she does do is she takes the Sveta ball and she's like holding it over her head in the middle of the group, like, I'm gonna open this shit and, like, kill the whole room. And then Sveta and everyone else is like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And then they demand Satyr's real reason, and he's like, we wanted to procrastinate until we ran out of time. And then he says, it's for love in the end. Pettiest of all pursuits. Arrogance, greed, even revenge, they're nobler, trust me. I've walked all those roads. But love, it twists all the other things, makes you misstep, makes you irrational, makes you impatient above all. We couldn't have gone down there without getting revenge, without falling to our greed and arrogance, so I was willing to wait. So, this is the part that I don't get. What did they need so much revenge about that they had to get revenge and that they would have definitely fought Pretender's group? The dots did not connect in my mind. Anyway, I just don't see the revenge, greed, and arrogance that are going on. Like, is it revenge on the Doctor for having Pretender work for her instead of them? Like, they've still ostensibly been carrying out missions for Cauldron the last couple of years. Vic says revenge for what the Doctor made them do? ? I don't know. Yeah. And, like, again, maybe there is some more, like a more fleshed out version of this in Wildbow's, like, imagining of the scene. And, like, we are not always going to know every character's motivation or whatever. It just has always stuck out to me as odd. 'Cause, like, I don't feel like there's any point before this or after this where he really explains what this supposed revenge, greed, and arrogance would be that makes them turn on their former allies so quickly in this, the final moments. I don't get it. Oh, Vic also said Imp is the MVP of this fight. Yep. She totally wins the fight. And wraps it up pretty quick. Like, there aren't that many more moves. And then at this point, after saying that he didn't want to be the person to finally pull the trigger and, like, do whatever it was they're going to do, then he's like, you have to run. The Case 53s are almost through the door. And then Lung is like, listen, we gotta go. He says, he is right, Skitter. I can hear him. He's using his super hearing to hear Scion. And then Taylor's like, I think I can see a golden light, but that might be just spots in my eyes. But yeah, she tells she runs toward where the Case 53s are finishing off the door. She speaks with her swarm, although I can't tell if this is to the Vegas Capes or to, I think it's to the Vegas Capes. But she's saying go upstairs if you want, and then like shows them the way out. But like all of her people run after her and follow her, but then the Satyrs group doesn't try to escape. They just like stand there. Also, I do like what she says to her own group. If you come, there's no way out. This isn't even a Hail Mary. It's a hope that there's maybe something we can do. A chance buried in a chance. And when they show up to the group that had been working their way through the steel door, then there's hardly anyone left, just like the mole man and the laser girl. And then they see like piles of dead Satyr clones who had attacked and killed some of the other Case 53s. As a group, they like mega leap onto the moleman, and then they crossbow the laser girl in the face. And apparently anyone else who was left gets like bowled over by Lung and Rachel and stuff. But then they all jump inside. Golden lights are flaring in the massive room they were just in when they were walking to get here. And then they're like, oh, shit, he really is here. And then they just, like, as soon as Cuff breaks through the final, like, wave of enemies, she jumps into the thing, and so does Imp. And then Golem is like last through. He's making hands to block stuff off, but Lung, Canary, Rachel, the dogs, Taylor, and Golem all go in. But then the last moment, right before she goes down the tube, she looks over at Shadowstalker, and then they meet eyes. And even though Shadowstalker helped them to finish off these last few Case 53s between them and the door, then she bolts over through a wall, assumedly up and out of the facility, but you know, unlike the others, she has escaped. And then yeah, Taylor, when Taylor goes in, Golem is the last to follow. So it's only our it's like the core crew of people we've had minus Shadowstalker. So they're getting whittled down a little bit. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 left, which is still a lot when the capes are all this powerful, but I guess one of them is Canary. So there's 6 left and Canary. And that's the end of the chapter. I really like the last bit when they're leaping through the thing and they're running away from Scion in his slow roll rampage, where he's just slowly floating, but he's still blasting. He's got a blast. Boop boop ba-doop. But it's a pretty good chapter. There's some weird spots. I think I like it overall, but that it feels like it needs an edit passed by Wildbow. And then he needs to be like, oh, I didn't quite say all the things. Or maybe I'm the one who doesn't understand. As for arc stuff, you know, it's a continuation. It gets us from these upper floors to the lower floors. The infiltration mission is finally reaching the point where they're going to find the doctor, which has been their goal since the end of last arc, really, to reestablish communications. As for characters, I've got Satyr. You know, he's a very cryptic guy. He's a weirdo. Everybody in this group hates him. I mean, they don't all individually say it one by one, but I think it's pretty clear that all of Taylor's people are like fucking over this guy the second he starts talking. Probably beforehand, because they already dealt with his stupid satyr clones in the cave. But I would imagine, like Taylor, some of them might be irrationally angry at the fact that he's still playing games at this stage. And some of the audience might also think, me included, that he's a big shithead. But you know, he's fine with that. He's a sexy villain, as they say. Florette, interesting character, cool power, rip in peace, I guess. Since according to Taylor, Satyr's group got zapped by Scion. For Leonid, really cool powers. We don't get that much of a characterization of him. I do think it's funny that he's like, oh, I'm not flirting with you for any given purpose. I'm just doing it because that's what I always do. That was pretty funny to me. Blowout. We do not learn about his personality at all. He works well in a fight with Florette without needing to pass any information. He has what I think is like a really cool power, and he's willing to take bold moves during a fight and fisticuff someone like Lung. Let's see here. The Custodian, we don't see her for that long. Hard to get a read on her personality since she's so ethereal, immaterial. Sophia, I think this is a great Sophia moment where she's unfazed by Satyr, but then at the end, when she could follow Taylor into the depths, and like follow this thing through to the end, she does not. She totally bails and gets the hell out of there. Although it is probably pretty useful to have her report back outside of the facility what she's learned down there and all the things. Still, great moment when they lock eyes and then she leaps through the wall. Lung, as we mentioned, great battle instincts. He started the fight just in time. They didn't wait too long, and they win pretty overwhelmingly. And then he's you know, the confirmation like, nah, Scion's right here. We gotta go. And then but you know, he's just doing Lung stuff. Typical Lung. Golem, still very passive in these chapters. I think ever since he sort of, like, failed to stop Gold Morning from happening. Oh, spoilers! They start calling the morning when Scion started blasting everybody with gold blasts Gold Morning. So when that happened, he sort of like um broke down his old stuff. Like I think he was really devastated by the whole Arc 26 in general. But now he's just like he's keeping it calm and collected. He's not inputting that much. But he's got Taylor's back. And that's what matters most to Taylor. Cuff, I don't know, she's really on the ball as far as like the fighting. The fact that she didn't pick up that when they were saying he's here that they meant Scion, I think she should have been able to figure that out. But either way, very straightforward, just like not getting taken in by Satyr. No one gets taken in by Satyr's BS, but it would be very easy to imagine it happening. I guess maybe Sophia kind of does, but not really. Sveta, we just get a little Sveta conversation. She is willing to work with them, at least as far as updating them on information. I like that Taylor senses, oh, she's more of a Canary type than a Sophia type. Aisha, MVP of the fight. She's doing good quips too. Pissing off Satyr, classic. I don't know. I mostly talked about her stuff during the chapter. I did skip over the line where she describes the characters you see here in this fine artwork as the man whores, which is always a great moment. Rachel, she is like excellent at cutting through. I also think that she gets her like comedy gold. There's other comedic Rachel scenes, but this one to me is great when she just says like, "I don't trust him," she whispered. He can hear you, right? I don't trust him. Yeah. And then Taylor, I would have responded mostly the same way as Taylor. Like the whole time she's like trying to work through the situation diplomatically. She's really doing her best, and she's having a hard time here. This is not something where I think she could have like picked the right dialogue options and talked her way through. Like the Vegas Caves were just too inscrutable for her to be able to like do this. I don't think there's anything she could have said to change their minds. I mean, anyways, that section's over with for now. We're going to go to powers, knowledge, and world building. I just pulled this one quote, even though there's like tons of information in this chapter, but Cauldron Capes have, according to reports, gotten responses from Scion. A pause, a momentary break in pattern, even, some say, a feeling of aversion. Powerful Cauldron Capes achieve better results, deviants even more so. And if the effect scales up as Cauldron thinks it might, the extreme deviants will get an even greater result, while having powers that may have some effect on him. So, this likely would explain why Scion is slowly drifting, like, single-targeting people. That seems to be what's happening, because he's not, like, just speeding through, blasting everything. And we'll never know if those extreme deviants did damage or not, because the way that Scion keeps refilling his body whenever he's hurt. And so for all we know, some of them could have done really well in their fights, but they didn't have any backup because they were in solo cages. Greg referencing a bizarre Star Wars thing that George Lucas once says, they should have tried the greatest deviants of all, Plo Koon fans. And he's right. Anyone who would be a fan of a character like Plo Koon is a serious deviant. Such as myself. Anyway, as for the other like power stuff, like I feel like all the stuff we learn about the 4 Vegas capes is like really interesting. I guess we learned the least about Satyr because we mostly knew all the stuff before. But like Floret, Leonid, Blowout, I think their power sets are all like really cool. It's kind of a bummer that we only get to see them for like one chapter. I would read an interlude arc where we got to be one chapter each as a Vegas cape doing their like standard undercover bullshit. That would be pretty cool as far as I'm concerned. And then we get some confirmation on the fact that like Cauldron does have all these backup plans left. Seemingly they have 5 major plans left, but the problem is that all 5 are here now and could potentially get wiped out all at once. So, yeah, not an ideal situation. Also, Satyr seems like one of the most annoying enemies to have because like you can never really be sure that you've taken him all down unless you had some power that like tagged him and would follow as long as he was alive, and then maybe you could, but yeah. Vic says once again, put all their eggs in one basket. Yeah, all eggs should be in one basket. And then they're like, but doctor, please use your plans. Throw an egg at Scion. And she's like, no, I need to contain the eggs that I have left in the basket. If I don't, I'll have no eggs left. And then everyone said, no, but if they're right there, he'll know where all of them are. He'll crack all the eggs at once. But they're safe in the basket. Oh, the doctor. Yeah, aside from a few other details about how vast the Cauldron facility is and the fact that it was created with powers, etc., then I think that I'm done with that section. I'm just going to move on to the audience participation. So, question was, as stated earlier, who is the least trustworthy character in Worm? Looks like we've got answers from the people we'd expect the most. Greg says, my first thought is Coil. He perpetrates several large-scale deception, lies without hesitation, and shows no loyalty. You can't trust someone who considers everybody else expendable pawns. That's a good call. Coil's a good one. And then Vic says, teacher. I've never trusted a word out of that man's mouth. He seems like he's constantly rubbing his hands together maniacally. I agree as well. Teacher would have been my answer. Coil's a good answer too. I think Satyr's in the top 5 least trustworthy people. I more or less trust the doctor to do what she says, even if I don't like agree with what she says. I don't think that she's untrustworthy in the traditional sense. So she doesn't go on my list. So we've got Coil, Teacher, Satyr. I think like Jack's probably one of the least trustworthy. So Jack's making top 5. I think Jack is less trustworthy than Satyr. And I think Jack and Coil are on par with each other. Teacher is even less trustworthy than Jack. I can't think of any other people who rise to that level. There are obviously a lot of people who would be like dishonest. Oh, you know what? I take it back. I think sort of a Kaiser plus Hookwolf. They are, well, Hookwolf's less schemy. We'll just go with Kaiser. So Kaiser is number 5. He almost reaches the heights of someone like Satyr. I think he's just a smidge below Satyr in the tier list, though. Maybe he's on the same tier as Satyr. But yeah, pretty untrustworthy folks. I like that selection we've got. And, we'll just move it on to the next question. So, I'm pasting in the chat now for next time. 29.7. And this is like, spoilers for the chapter 29.7. But given that the Doctor reveals she's a potential parahuman, what kind of powers do you think she'd get? It was one that I wanted to think on. I'm not sure yet. I do want to start my outro. I you know what? I like to replay part of the old speed draw at the end. Yeah, it should time correctly. Yeah, the music you're hearing now is Extinction by ScarlettXOX, and you can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Despite earlier claims, I'm not sure that there is going to actually be streaming again from her. Hopefully, someday, but hasn't happened yet. Anyway, the Discord server link and the other links can be found in the channel description and the stream description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. There's also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org, as well as a separate audiobook, the second one, at abaddonproductions.org. So there are 2 flavors of audiobook for you to choose. I mean, there are other ones too, but those are the ones that are complete. So, yeah. Anyway, this is a little less evergreen, but I know I've missed a bunch of stream dates recently. I'm hoping to get back to streaming once a week, even if I miss the Saturday date. But we're just doing our best, Yeah, it's exciting to be near the end. Just a few more chapters in this arc, then the final arc, then the epilogue. That's right, only several more months before we're done. Cheers, Greg. Oh, and as I think I said on the previous episode, I do have the final song for Arc 30 in the epilogue, and I'm quite happy with it, so...